What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 496 of #AskGSM. Here today for Wednesday, May 31st, 2023. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week so far. Very busy weekend of wrestling this past weekend. I'm just now catching up on all of it. Double or Nothing, Battleground I was there for, Night of Champions. Great weekend of wrestling, Raw, NXT, NWA, AEW tonight. A lot of stuff still to watch. All my reviews and whatnot will be up at some point, so bear with me. In the meantime, if you want to send in a question to the show for me to answer here on the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. I literally just realized as I'm talking right now, I forgot to include the YouTube questions in the document of the questions. I'm such a fucking idiot. I put all the Twitter questions in there, but not the YouTube questions. So we'll start with Micah Does It from YouTube. He's got a couple here. First one being, he's got these like fucking deep questions. We'll continue it on with this one here. From Micah Does It, his first one was, if you were stuck on an island by yourself and could only eat one food every day until you were rescued, what food would you eat? I mean, this is probably the easiest answer that I've had to one of your questions yet, to one of these deep-rooted, intrusive, that's the right word, deep-thinking answers, or questions rather. It would have to be chicken. Anyone that knows me well enough knows I'm a chicken freak. I obviously eat other stuff beyond just chicken, but that is my go-to: chicken parm, chicken sandwich, grilled chicken, fried chicken. I'm a chicken guy, so it would have to be chicken, no doubt about it. Your second question, do you think there is any former WWE talent that regrets signing with AEW and wish they were back in WWE? I mean, I'm sure there's at least one or two. I'm not going to say none. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, everyone in AEW wishes they were in WWE. I don't think so. I mean, people like FTR had a choice. They could have left when their contracts expired recently, and they chose not to. That may have been Dax Harwood has said that the biggest reason why they stayed put, one, they would have more creative freedom, which they probably will, almost undoubtedly will. That didn't stop Cody Rhodes from going back to WWE, though. The second thing being, they have an easier schedule being in AEW, wrestling when they want, taking breaks, doing indie stuff, kind of managing their own schedule, whereas in WWE, you're just going hard for the next couple of years. Cody Rhodes doesn't mind that. FTR has, at least Dax Harwood does. I mean, Cody has a family too. Dax doesn't really want to do that, and that's completely his choice. So they had a chance to leave, and they didn't, which is completely fine. As long as they're utilized well in AEW this time around, and not to say they weren't the first time, but they really haven't done a lot in the last couple of years as much as I thought they would. They are the tag team champions right now. That's the right role for them right now anyway. Maybe people that went to AEW thinking that Vince would always be there. He is back. I mean, Vince is back in WWE, not in complete creative control by the time. I mean, I thought he would be back in complete creative control by now, to be completely honest with you. Thankfully, that hasn't happened yet, ... Who those people would be that are in AEW that regret not going to WWE, I'm not really sure who that would be. Could you say a Keith Lee or a Swerve Strickland? I doubt Swerve Strickland would want to go back ever, let alone now, or, I assume he doesn't. I mean, he's not being utilized the best in AEW by a far stretch. I love his heel run and whatnot, but he's barely on the fucking show. Would he really be doing that much more in WWE right now than in AEW? I question that. Keith Lee, I can see him regretting going to AEW for the sole reason that he's not with his wife. Like, I could see people like that saying, man, I wish Triple H took over a year ago so I wouldn't have been fired, or I could have gone back sooner so I didn't have to go to AEW. Malachi Black, same thing. I could see him saying to himself, I wish I was back in WWE. Maybe not for, like, creative reasons, but to be back with their wives. Because their wives probably are not leaving WWE anytime soon. So beyond that, I doubt there's many people that are like, man, that company's just so much better. It's kind of even right now. They have their peaks and valleys, both WWE and AEW do, creatively. Vince being back, even in any form or fashion, is not overly, not an encouraging sign. So, and I'm sure there's people in WWE that wish they were in AEW, so I wouldn't be too surprised about that either. Jay White could be another one. Oh man, I wish I went to WWE. He's another one that really sticks out to me, but like when he went to AEW, was that a reactionary move to Vince being back? I don't think so. Although I feel like his signing had Triple H remained in complete creative control and had things not gone to shit coming out of Vince's return to the company. Because they really haven't hired anyone in the last couple of months. So maybe it's just a case of his signing got lost in the shuffle and he had to go to AEW because he had to make a choice and that was it. Not to say he won't be utilized well in AEW, but so far he's been kind of an afterthought. And I want to see him do more than what he's been doing lately. Again, would he be that much better off in WWE? I don't know. So it kind of goes both ways. His third question, out of all the wrestling shows we got this weekend, out of Champions, Double or Nothing, NXT Battleground, what was your favorite match out of all three shows, and which show of all three shows had the worst match of the weekend? Honestly, of all three shows, what was the best match? Probably Dijak and Dragunov, Ilya Dragunov from Battleground. And I'm probably biased because I was there for that one. But Night of Champions, I really liked Rollins and Styles. I really liked the main event. Double or Nothing had a great Four Pillars match. I really like Christian Cage and Wardlow for the TNT title in the ladder match. But I would have to go with Dijak and Dragunov. I was there for that one. They really fucking killed it. I had high hopes for it, and it was still an awesome match. Probably the best match of the weekend. What was the worst match of the weekend? I mean, Rhea and Natalya literally went fucking 90 seconds. Night of Champions didn't have any bad matches. I like Cody and Brock. Bianca and Asuka had a good match. Not as good as their WrestleMania match, but still a good match. The tag team title match, the opener was great. Becky and Trish was good. It would probably have to be Double or Nothing, but I don't know what the worst match would be. I mean, Jamie Hayter and Tony wasn't great, but it was basically an angle, so it didn't really bother me, and Jamie's apparently hurt, so I can understand it. You didn't ask me what the worst match of the weekend was. You asked me what show would have the worst match. I mean, let's pull up Double or Nothing here. I'm pretty sure it would probably have to be Double or Nothing, because I don't remember anything on Night of Champions or even Battleground and being there being a bad match. Not that anything at Double or Nothing was bad, but it would probably have some weaker matches just because there were more matches. So looking at the card now, either the pre-show match, which wasn't great, between the Hardys and Hook and the Guns and Ethan Page, that wasn't great. I actually enjoyed Cole and Jericho more than most. I didn't love the match, but I didn't really hate it as much as most people. A lot of fucking overbooking. Did not like the finish with the referee stoppage. At least Cole won, but I liked the match personally. It would probably be Storm and Hayter, because usually they've had better matches, and that was basically an angle. If we're not going with that, like the AEW tag team title match was an overbooked fucking mess. And the pre-show match wasn't good. So you're not asking me specifically what the worst match of the weekend was. You're just asking me what show had the worst match. So it would probably be Double or Nothing, just because it had more matches and nothing on either of the WWE shows was overly terrible, from what I can remember. His fourth question now. Now that Bianca Belair has lost the Raw Women's title to Asuka at the Night of Champions pay-per-view, I pop, by the way, it was so unexpected, he says. If she ever decided to go after the women's tag titles, who do you think would make a good tag team partner with Bianca? I mean, they've both talked about this before, but Bianca and Naomi a couple of years ago would have been great. I don't think Naomi/Trinity's coming back anytime soon. I don't want to say if ever. I mean, her husband still works there, so there's a chance she can go back at some point down the road. Her and Bianca, Naomi and Bianca would have been awesome. Considering Naomi's not there, who would be a good partner for Bianca Belair? Just kind of thinking of the current Raw and SmackDown rosters, it would probably have to be someone on the SmackDown roster. I mean, having her team with someone on Raw would be kind of problematic when they're not on the same show. But looking at the SmackDown roster, I mean, there's a number of different people it could be. Not that any one of them really stands out as being, this is such like a slam dunk pick here. Let's see. Looking at the SmackDown roster, beep, beep, boop, boop. Alba Fire and Isla Dawn already, accounted for as partners. Lacey Evans, no. Probably Michin. I forgot Michin was on SmackDown, me and him. So either Michin, Shotzi's had like a million fucking partners, no thanks. Not Tamina. Vega would be interesting. I feel like Bianca and Vega could have decent chemistry as partners, with Bianca being kind of like the powerhouse and Vega being like the smaller, not more athletic, but like the high flyer, so to speak, of the two. Zelina would be interesting. B-Fab's awful. Bailey, no. Io, no. Charlotte, no. I mean, that would be just too dominant, I feel like. It would probably have to be either Mia Yim. I'd go Zelina Vega because I feel like they'd have a really good dynamic. I don't want to see Bianca in the tag team division. I feel like she's above that, and that would be a waste of time. But it is an idea, though. Joe M. from YouTube's got 2 questions here. First one being, of all the WWE COVID budget cuts that have gone on to other companies, is Steve Maclin the most improved out of all of them? I mean, there's been so fucking many. He's definitely at the top of the list. I'd have to look at the list of like all the budget cuts of everyone they let go during COVID, but he would be on there, though. I mean, Steve Maclin was a guy that was in that WWE developmental system for a very long fucking time. He was in NXT for many, many years. Went to the main roster, didn't have much success there either as part of the Forgotten Sons. The Forgotten Sons sucked. And not that Steve Maclin was bad. Jackson Riker, interestingly, probably had the most potential, but not because he was the best. He was easily the worst of those 3 in the ring and just in every other sense. But he had a good look. So I could see them doing something with him. Thankfully, that did not pan out, and they let go of him, too. But, like, him and Wesley Blake were a fucking generic-ass tag team. He gets fired. I don't think it was due to the fact, like, oh, like, we don't need you anymore. I think it was due to the fact that, I think it was a COVID thing. Like, he brought COVID to work, or, like, he accidentally had COVID or whatever, and they fired him. It was kind of a dumb reason. Deonna Purrazzo, his wife, talked about that, because she was fired, like, before that as part of the budget cuts, and I don't think it was a budget cut thing. But anyway, he went on to Impact later on that year and really transformed his body, got in a great shape. Not that he was in bad shape before, but he's in excellent shape now. He's not everyone's cup of tea. He's not the most exciting performer, but he's really gotten great in the ring and shown great character development. They've really had him rise up in the ranks, having great matches, and now he's the world champion. Steve Maclin really surprised me. He's probably on... I feel like he had higher potential, more potential at the time. EC3, as someone who went from being in WWE developmental for fucking years, getting fired, going to TNA, and becoming a world champion. Relatively quickly, but, you know, EC3 went undefeated for a long time, beat a lot of top names. Steve Maclin beat a lot of top names in Impact, not as many as EC3 did back in the day. EC3 beat fucking Kurt Angle, he beat Sting, he beat a number of people. He never beat, or rather Steve Maclin isn't beating that level of talent, but he has been built up very well in Impact. So Steve Maclin reminds me of EC3 in that sense, as someone who was like literally just another guy on that bad version of NXT, and then he gets fired, goes to Impact, and really reinvents himself. And maybe he goes back to WWE at some point down the road with this new gimmick. Hopefully not as a Forgotten Son, no need to see that, but he has been definitely a success story that not enough people are talking about. As someone who went from WWE not being... Would he have still been as good in WWE? Maybe, but I feel like, honestly, it took him getting fired to really realize how good he could be, and then rising to the level he's at now, currently in Impact. His second question, are you surprised with how much Ricky Starks has cooled off since his feud with MJF? No, because AEW does this all the time. Am I disappointed? Yes. Am I surprised? No. I mean, WWE as well, but AEW specifically is notorious for getting someone hot and then cooling them off by either not having them on the show or really not following up with it. Now, Ricky Starks got really hot in late 2022, had the feud with MJF for about a month, and they did follow up on it. They did follow up with that with the Jericho feud. So it's like, all right, he gets an equally big name in Jericho, and he beat Jericho twice. The feud itself wasn't great at all, but the matches were good, and Starks won twice. So they followed up on the MJF stuff by keeping Starks hot in the Jericho feud, kind of, had him beat him twice, and then from there, what did he do? He's feuding with G. White right now, but the feud's barely on Dynamite. They were in the fucking Battle Royal at Double or Nothing. They didn't have a singles match at that pay-per-view. Stupid. Very dumb. So, yeah, I'm not surprised at all, but they've done the same thing with Swerve. He turned heel. He had a lot of momentum. Barely on the show from that point forward. They bring in Keith Lee. A lot of momentum. A lot of people are buzzing around Keith Lee. Wasn't used right in WWE. This is his rebound. He'll rise up the ranks. Does a team with Swerve. Okay. They break up. He's been barely on the show. He's gotten hurt and disappeared a few times, but still. I mean, it's still AEW's fault overall. Wardlow, is the most egregious fucking case. Also, since the feud with MJF has cooled off tremendously. Thankfully, he won a Double or Nothing again this year. And he retained the TNT title in that great ladder match with Christian. But he also is far from the star he was a year ago. Like, it is scary how much he's cooled off. Like, you really have to fucking take an effort to cool someone off that much. You have to take them and put them in the freezer to have cooled him off as much as they have in the last year. And I can go on and on and on. So, no, it's not surprising, but it is disappointing. I'm hoping that changes with Collision, and if Collision is as important of a show as Dynamite, and it kind of fucking has to be because Rampage never was, maybe for a couple of weeks, but it hasn't been in a very long time. In 2 hours of meaningful television, I'm not talking about Dark, I'm not talking about Ring of Honor, I'm not talking about Rampage. They need more hours of meaningful television, and to make the most of the time they already have on Dynamite, which they usually do. They could do a better job, but the 2 hours of Collision, if it's on the same level of Dynamite, then that could create more opportunities for people like Starks, people like Hobbs. Again, he got over. And what did they follow that up with? Nothing. QTV, what the fuck is that bullshit? It benefited no one but QT Marshall, let's be honest. I said that even then. So, anyway, hopefully Collision can help with that. Now we move on to the Twitter questions here. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter Machine, and on YouTube, Real Honesty with John Ritland. Check out his content channel, does awesome work. His first question was Double or Nothing one of the most, or rather messiest pay-per-views they've ever put on in their short history? Stipulations all over, started with chaos, ended with more chaos. There weren't too many bright spots, were there? Like I said earlier, I enjoyed the show. Would I call it a great show? No, I would not. Was it one of their best shows? No, it was not. I honestly, and maybe it was because I watched it after the fact, maybe I would have a different opinion on the show if I watched it live. There was nothing during the show I thought was actively bad. Like I said, there were a couple of matches I didn't really care about that were weak, but I mean, you could say the same thing about most AEW shows or WWE pay-per-views or whatever. Even NXT had matches I didn't really give a shit about. Dar and Dragon Lee was kind of a bummer. I mean, the round shit, like the not the pure rules, what is it? The British rounds, I don't really care too much about that shit. Very much limited what they could do. But anyway, as far as Double or Nothing goes, I liked the show. Cole and Jericho, I saw people say that was disappointing. It wasn't the show stealer I thought it could be, but I didn't hate it. Just didn't like the booking of the finish. The right outcome, but the way they went about it was lame. I don't know. They just had good matches. And the thing with Double or Nothing for me, was it messy? I don't know if I would call it messy, because I like the Jade Cargill title loss to Chris Statlander. I like that a lot. Tony kind of had to win the women's title because Jamie Hayter's hurt, and that was an angle that was disappointing, but again, it is what it is. Anarchy in the Arena I thought was fucking awful last year. Not that I loved it this year. I liked it a little bit more when they got the controlled chaos in the ring. Now, I know the whole point is that it goes all around the arena, but when you do a million different camera cuts, it's sensory overload. I don't even really deal with that sort of stuff. I'm not like, my anxiety's through the roof. Like, I don't really care about that sort of shit, but as far as the wrestling matches goes, I don't prefer it. It's all over the place, hard to follow. I don't give a shit. It's stupid. I liked it when they did Stadium Stampede the first year or two. That was kind of cool, but it's been lame ever since then, since that first or second one. I hated Anarchy in the Arena last year, like I said. I thought it was better this year, and I really liked the Four Pillars 4-Way. There wasn't a lot else that really stood out. I would call it a good/solid show that I enjoyed, but far from what I would go back and watch again, and I honestly thought last year's show was worse. There were a lot more things on last year's show that I either thought sucked or I hated the outcome. I thought Double or Nothing last year was honestly one of the worst shows they've ever done on pay-per-view. No one agreed with me. I was in the minority. And I thought this show was better, but still not great. I thought Revolution was a better show. I thought Full Gear was a much better show. Double or Nothing felt like an afterthought. But again, the thing for me was this. The build wasn't good. The show had potential on paper. Did you expect it to be a better show than that? Yeah, and I would agree. I'm not even saying anyone's wrong for calling it a bad show or messy or whatever. I wasn't already overly excited because the build sucked. And I kind of knew going in, it feels like an afterthought because they clearly have their sights set on Collision's debut and Forbidden Door, the Owen Hart Cup tournament, on All In and All Out even. Like, Double or Nothing was at the bottom of the fucking list, which is ridiculous considering it's been one of their premier pay-per-views, their first ever pay-per-view 4 years ago. How could it not be? I don't agree with that approach, but I also thought it was a decent show. By AEW standards, it was definitely a disappointment, I would say. But for my own expectations, I thought it met them as a solid show and nothing more beyond that. Hopefully the other shows coming up are better than this one and they put more effort into making those shows feel more important than they did with Double or Nothing. His second question, so Seth Rollins versus AJ Styles opened Night of Champions as part of the triple main event. I did not expect it to main event, but doesn't this just further cement the secondary championship label? It does. I mean, we talked all about this last week. I don't know if it was rumored when we recorded the show last Wednesday that the match was opening Night of Champions. It was rumored ahead of time. It might have been Thursday or Friday. I don't think it was as early as Wednesday. But I said even when I saw that, that's fucking dumb. If the idea, listen, a couple things. If the idea was that Rollins had to leave early to go film the Marvel movie, then I get that. That was never confirmed. And two, you're not going to have it close over the Roman Reigns stuff with Jimmy Uso because that was the biggest part of the entire show and made for the best cliffhanger ending. The problem there, though, is that it further cements that everything involving the Bloodline is bigger than the World Heavyweight Championship. And cements it as a 1B title, not 1A. 1A is still Roman Reigns and whatever the fuck he's doing. So I guarantee at Money in the Bank, unless a Money in the Bank ladder match closed the show, which it did last year, because I don't think there was a World Heavyweight title defense on that show last year, then whatever Roman Reigns is doing, either against Jimmy Uso or against both Usos or whatever, that will also close the show. Whatever Rollins does will not close the show. And it makes that title feel like a fucking mid-card title. I mean, literally the biggest issue with the World Heavyweight Championship 10 years ago before they retired it and merged it with the WWE title was that it was opening Raws. It was opening pay-per-views all the fucking time. And now it still is. 10 years later, they had to open Night of Champions. Like, you couldn't put Brock and Cody on first in the World Heavyweight title match a little bit later on. It did open the show on a high note, I get it. But, like, it's still the World Heavyweight Championship. And especially at a time when the championships don't feel important anyway. The title does not feel important because of Roman Reigns holding the more important titles. And it further cemented that by what they did. I completely agree. It's going to take a lot to convince people that those titles are on the same level as what Roman Reigns currently holds, which it's not. If you want to convince people of that, you got to put forward a real effort. You got to put forth a real effort, and we did not see that on Sunday, or Saturday, rather. The match was great. Rollins winning is cool. Triple H out there to celebrate with Rollins, awesome. But it opened the show, and it was not an afterthought, but the Roman Reigns stuff completely overshadowed it. That was what people were talking about coming out of Night of Champions and not the World Heavyweight Championship. And that's not good. Non-wrestling related, he says, but I'm sure you're going to watch Across the Spider-Verse. Is there any chance you'll be checking out The Boogeyman since it also comes out this weekend? Probably not. I know they've done a million Boogeyman movies. I know nothing about them. I know nothing about the movie. I haven't seen any trailers. I've seen it get no buzz. If it's so bad that I need to see it, or if other people I know that have seen it that are talking about it, then I'll probably go see it. If not, and it's not a movie that people are talking about, a movie that people give a shit about, then probably not. I am not currently planning on seeing it. I will probably not pay money to go see it. But I will, if it's on streaming, then I could check it out. If it's so bad that it's good, then maybe. If it's so bad that it's bad, then probably not. I still, at some point, like I said last week, still have to see The Little Mermaid. That came out over the weekend with Alexis. I'll probably go see that, maybe not this weekend, probably next weekend. I am seeing Into the Spider-Verse on Friday. It's my birthday on Friday. It comes out on Friday. Perfect timing. We're seeing that movie on Friday. But as far as Little Mermaid goes, I'll see that soon. Those are the movies on my list for right now. I'm kind of limiting what I'm seeing because I saw Fast X last week, which was great. I saw Guardians twice. So I'm probably going to go see like the new Elementals movie coming out in a couple weeks. I will likely see The Flash at some point. Transformers, probably not. I'm seeing Indiana Jones. So I don't want to go to the movies every single week. So probably not The Boogeyman unless it comes out on fucking Peacock or HBO Max or some shit like that. At noob_n_co-tv rather from Twitter. Their first question was, which pay-per-view got everyone excited over the weekend? Night of Champions, NXT Battleground, or Double or Nothing? I mean, the show that got people excited, like what was the best show? Probably Night of Champions. Battleground might have been the better show than Night of Champions, but no one was watching Battleground. I was there, and it was a great show, and I was there in person. It was a fun time. No one was talking about it because it aired opposite of Double or Nothing. So Double or Nothing did not get positive reviews at all. People were looking forward to the show probably more than Night of Champions. I think it ended up being the weaker show compared to Night of Champions. Night of Champions was better. I don't know if people were excited for that show, but it ended up being a pretty good show. Battleground was also, like, again, no real excitement level at all, but it ended up being a very good show. So I would probably go Night of Champions, although Battleground was possibly the better show. I'd have to go back and really think about it. His second question, what are your predictions for the Crockett Cup coming up this weekend, the NWA pay-per-view? He's got EC3 retaining the national title, La Rebellion and Country Gentlemen winning the tag team tournament, Natalia Markova winning the NWA women's title, or Camille retains since Natalia is a free agent wrestler. I don't have any strong opinions or predictions one way or the other. I'll get around to watching the show when I get a chance to. I agree with all your predictions. For the women's title match, I think Markova takes the title. Camille's been champion now as of this coming weekend for almost exactly 2 years. There's no one else in that roster that to me really makes sense to take that belt off of her. She's had so many matches and she's been a great champion. But, I mean, they need to start approaching, like, when are we taking this title off of Camille? And who is it going to be to? I think Markova makes the most sense. She's a complete package. She's pretty good in the ring. I know you send me questions about her every single week. No one really watches NWA, so I don't really waste my time answering the questions. I do watch the product, though. I think she's quite good. I think it will and should be her come either night 1 or night 2, whatever day it's airing on this weekend. His next question, non-wrestling related questions, but what are your thoughts on the gameplay for Spider-Man 2? And are you planning on streaming the Marvel related games like Spider-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy? No and no. I heard about Spider-Man 2. I played the first one, not because I own it, but a friend of mine does. And it was cool. I played it a little bit. It was fun. I've heard nothing but good things about it. I don't know if I'll get the second game. Probably not. I'm not a big gamer at all. I struggle to even find time to play 2K23. I'll probably get the Fight Forever game at some point. But Spider-Man 2, probably not. I heard Guardians was great. My brother played that game and he said it was awesome. I love Guardians, so maybe I will get that at some point for the PS4 because that's the system I have. The first Spider-Man, again, maybe. Will I stream them? Probably not. Maybe, though. If I get the game and people want to see gameplay from me, even if it's like 5 years late, then maybe. Most likely not, but, possibly. Who knows? Next question. Let's see. Also from Noob. Will we see a women's blood and guts match in the AEW women's division? I say that the Outcasts need more members, and if they make it interesting, put the match on a bigger stage like All In Wembley or All Out in Chicago. I think that's where this is headed. I don't think it's necessary. Toni Storm winning the championship on Sunday gives them more heat. That's good. But still, I don't know. It's just the Outcasts thing I don't really care about. The storyline, the originals versus the Outcasts. It feels like it's been going on forever, and it's really not that interesting. If you were going to do a women's War Games match, it would be with these women because the storyline makes sense. What are you going to do, one and then the other? Because we're clearly getting a men's one soon with the Elite against the Blackpool Combat Club. So, again, are you just going to do 2 War Games matches within the span of a couple months? I mean, I guess they could. To do it at All In, they're not going to do it at All In. To do it at All In, they would need to, take away some seats because they already sold tickets to, like, a normal ringside setup. So they're not doing a War Games match at All In. Unless they completely alter the seating chart for that show, I doubt they want to do that. So they're not doing that. They would have to do it on TV. And again, to do it a couple months apart, no. I mean, could you do it at All Out? Maybe, but Tony Khan has done all of his big matches like that on TV. The Blood and Guts matches so far have all happened on TV. Anarchy in the Arena have happened on pay-per-view. Stadium Stampede. Those have happened on pay-per-view. But, like, the 2 ring stuff, they like to do on TV because they don't want to take up the seats for the pay-per-view, I guess, by wasting space or whatever. I don't know. So, it's possible. Will we get to that point? Maybe. Possibly. It would make sense to do it with these women. But like you said, we would need more women on the Outcast side to make it 4-on-4 at least. At least one more woman. I don't know who that would be. But, yeah, I mean, it's not really something I'm overly excited for currently. I'm sure the match would be good, but I'm more so looking forward to the blood and guts between the Elite and Blackpool Combat Club because that feud has been far more interesting than what they've done to the women lately. At Iwagu91, their first question was, it's been rumored that Braun Breaker and the Creed brothers are on their way up to the main roster. Do you believe that? I could see that. Neither of them, I'm not finished with NXT yet, but we didn't see the Creed brothers on NXT last night or Braun Breaker. And again, I might be missing something, but they might have been on the show and I missed that. I don't think they were, though. I could see them going up. Creed Brothers losing to Gallus surprised me. That kind of indicated to me, all right, I could see them going up. Breaker, I'm just kind of curious what you do with him on the main roster. I would put him on Raw. SmackDown has enough heels. Roman, LA Knight, Karrion Kross, Solo. Raw needs more heels, so Braun would have to go to Raw. The Creed Brothers, doesn't really matter where they go, honestly. They can go to either show, and I feel like they'd be fine. Probably Raw as well. Again, it doesn't really matter. The tag titles float anyway. But yeah, I could see them going to the main roster. They belong in the main roster. I guess the Creeds would not be bringing Ivy Nile with them, which is fine. They could always reunite down the road. Maybe she's not ready completely yet anyway. Braun Breaker is ready. It's just more a matter of what you do with him when he gets called up. Does he feud with Shinsuke? Does he feud with Rollins or Cody Rhodes? That would be interesting. So if you put him in there with a top name from the get-go, he's not going to win the world title, nor should he, right away. But I feel like a slow progression would be nice to see. But yeah, I could certainly see them being main roster bound. I can believe that report because I'm not really sure what else they do in NXT. The Creed Brothers have already been the NXT Tag Team Champions. They have, I think in the last month or two, have failed to regain the belts 3 times at Stand and Deliver, at Spring Breakin', or one of those shows around that time, and again at the Battleground show. And Breaker has now lost to Hayes twice. So I think that feud's over. I don't know what else you do with Breaker, honestly, in NXT, unless he has another send-off in another match, like Waller did. Waller had a couple more matches where he put over people on the way out. I don't know who that would be with, though, in NXT. Maybe Wes Lee? They've never faced off before, so maybe Wes Lee, or he's already faced Tyler Bate. I'm not really sure who else he would put over on the way out, but either way, Breaker's main roster bound. I could certainly see him being on either Raw or SmackDown, or specifically Raw, probably by SummerSlam, if not sooner. His second question, your thoughts on the new World Heavyweight Championship not sharing the same lineage as the original that was used from 2002 to 2013. It's a bummer, because, it looks similar enough. It's not the big gold, but it's close enough to where I would just use the same lineage. But if they want to establish a new championship like they did with the Universal title back in 2016, even though that didn't carry, what Universal Championship has existed in WWE's existence? None. The World Heavyweight Championship shares the exact same fucking name and a very similar design to the one from 2013. And anyone arguing, it's because the World Heavyweight Championship was merged with the WWE title, you can't do that. Okay. The WCW title merged with the WWE title in 2001. But they brought back Big Gold in 2002, the same belt, different lineage in 2002. It was not the same championship. It's the same title belt, but it's not the same lineage. So you could do that. I could see why they're what they're doing now, you can do. And using the same belt, but starting a different lineage. That's fine. If they want to call it a different thing, they're calling it the same thing, but if they want to say it's a different lineage, that's okay. I would prefer it to go back to 2002 from 2013. But then again, that fucking thing was held by Jack Swagger by the end there, and a couple other champions that were eh. So honestly, if you don't want to go back to that, I get it, and you want to start anew, just treat this thing with importance and send the right message, because that title by the end meant fucking nothing. You know what I mean? It meant absolutely nothing, and currently this title right now also doesn't mean a whole bunch, and it's also a big problem as far as not being on the same level as the WWE Championship. They're not off to the strongest start. It currently does feel like the World Heavyweight Championship from 2002 to 2013 by the end there. By the end there, it felt like a glorified mid-card title. So they might as well use the same lineage. But if they want to start anew, they really got to do enough to make it feel like a World Heavyweight Championship. His next question, are Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci the next challengers to face Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn for the tag team titles? It looks that way, and that's fine. But the problem with me there, though, is that we already had the match a couple weeks ago, and Owens and Zayn won clean. And they also beat them in a 6-man the following week. So I don't really know why they would start building them up now if they already lost to Owens and Zayn. They really haven't been built up at all since they joined Gunther on the main roster. So it should be a good match and a good feud. We know it'll be a good match because they already had a match a couple of weeks ago. I just hate when they do that shit. We already saw them beat them last month or a few weeks ago. Why would you then start building them towards tag team title contention? That's silly to me. Like Finn Balor, for example, same thing. If he's next in line for Rollins, why? He already lost to Rollins a few weeks ago. Why would I want to see that again anytime soon? Balor's not been remotely built up. That's stupid to me. So hopefully that's not where they're going with that. But with Imperium being in the tag title picture, that's great. I just wish they did not do the match in the first place a few weeks ago. At Kyle Rochelle 19, their question was, since Becky Lynch is still feuding with Trish Stratus and now Zoe Stark heading into SummerSlam, who does Rhea Ripley face in Money in the Bank in SummerSlam? Rhea is a great wrestler and champion, but so far she faced Zelina Vega and Natalya. What's next for her? With Rhea, that's a good question. They gave Candice a video package on Monday. Candice and Rhea would be nice, but Candice no one gives a shit about right now. She has no no one cares about her. So that's a problem. Looking at the Raw Women's Division, Indy is an option. I think she's still hurt, but she's too new for that anyway. Emma is on main event. Dana Brooks on main event. Chelsea Green, no. Candice, maybe down the road. Katana Chance, Kaden Carter, no. Liv is hurt. Raquel, honestly, I would say Raquel. Wait, I just realized something. I said earlier, I'm such a fucking idiot. I said earlier that Bianca can't team with a Raw women's wrestler because they're on separate shows. But I just realized that Raquel and Shotzi were on separate shows as well. Shotzi's on SmackDown, Raquel's on Raw. So if they won the tag titles, then what the fuck? That's so dumb. That's so dumb. Anyway, so Raquel's free. I hope she's not going back after the women's tag team titles. Maybe her and Shotzi can face Raquel and Ronda, or face Ronda and Shayna and lose and just move on. They teased Raquel and Rhea right after WrestleMania and never went back to it. So I would have it be Raquel, maybe at Money in the Bank and SummerSlam, or just one of the two shows. Becky and Rhea would be great, but it does seem like they are building to Becky and Trish in a blow-off match at SummerSlam, because they have Money in the Bank, but now with Zoe Stark being in the equation, that kind of changes things, so they probably will blow it off at SummerSlam to kind of make the feud drag it out a little longer. Hopefully they can make it more interesting between now and then. Piper Niven's still a heel, so maybe if they turned her, but probably not. Nikki Cross, maybe, but she's been winning on main event lately. I just don't care. Ronda, Shayna, no. Sonya, no. Tegan Nox on main event. Trish, no. Xia Li, no. And Zoe Stark, no. So it would probably either have to be Indy, who's still new and I think still hurt. Who was the other person I said? Piper or Nikki specifically, maybe. Probably Raquel. I would probably have Ronda feud with Raquel and obviously have Rhea go over. I feel like the matches would be good too because they worked really well together in NXT and they're best friends. Or I think they still are, but they were best friends in real life at one point and they worked really well together. Then I don't see why the main roster would be any different. At Bill Meister 88's got a couple questions here. First one being, do you think it's time for the WWE to have a women's intercontinental title to support with pushing more women's talent instead of the promo overload we currently have, especially on Raw? Triple H would need to improve his women's division booking to make this happen. I've said this before. I'm not in favor of doing a women's mid-card title unless they got rid of the tag titles. I just don't think it would make a difference. I don't think more titles is the answer. They have enough fucking titles. They don't need more championships. If you get rid of one and then add it, then maybe. I would be more interested in seeing a women's mid-card title than tag titles. I feel like that'd be more sought after. It'd be an interesting concept. Currently, I don't really care to see that. And anyone thinking, oh, well, if you had a mid-card title, it would make people like Candice mean more. I mean, not necessarily the case at all. You have people like that fight for the main women's titles and still don't mean anything. You need actual character development. Adding more championships is not the answer. It's not like these women are over but directionless. Like Rollins needed a title because the guy was a big star with no championship to fight for. That's a problem. People like Candice, Tegan, Michin, all great. No one gives a fuck. And giving them a title that means nothing from the get-go is not going to change that. People still will not care. You need to make people care by doing more stories, more vignettes, more promos, more character development with these women before anyone will care about them challenging for any championship, no matter what it is. So a women's mid-card title, maybe if they got rid of the tag team title shit, they're not going to. They had a chance last year and they didn't. Just give the women more promos and more storylines. Like we're getting a Trish and Becky story, or Trish and Becky. That's not over a championship, and that's great. But it's not really benefiting anyone because they're both established people. Now, it is benefiting Zoe Stark to be in there, hopefully. Hopefully she can benefit from that. But we need more of that sort of stuff. Why aren't Tegan Nox and Emma even on Raw? I mean, that to me is dumb. They're both very talented. I would like to see them doing more, give them more stories. That's what I would like to see. His second question, your thoughts on the rumors of SmackDown going to 3 hours like Raw? Personally, I hate the idea, but if used better by Fox, it could push more talent. The answer is no. Absolutely fucking not. I don't care what it means, more television time. I mean, people said the same thing when Raw went to 3 hours, and it feels like less people are over now thanks to the 3 hours than when Raw was 2 hours 10 years ago. More does not mean better. Now, again, AEW, I said earlier, them adding Collision is good because it's another 2 hour show, more television time. That's on a different night. There's a big difference between having two 2 hour shows and one 3 hour show. Because the crowd's not sitting there for 3 hours straight. If it's a pay-per-view, that's one thing. But if a crowd's sitting there for 3 hours straight, by the third hour, they get tired. That's been the case. That's human fucking nature. Mondays, Fridays, it doesn't matter. I think a 3 hour SmackDown would be fucking awful, and I really hope that doesn't happen. That's like the sole-saving grace of the show compared to Raw, is that it's not 3 hours. That would be silly. If you want to make them on the same playing field, then turn Raw back into 2 hours, but we all know that's not going to happen. But, yeah, no. SmackDown is the 3 hour show. That's a hard fucking no. You can't convince me otherwise. His last question here. Is this the end of the road for Bray Wyatt? Not seen in months. Rumors he might be announced on the cuts in July. Personally, I'm so disappointed for him, in WWE especially, as his return was so fantastically done creatively to basically being a guy in a Halloween mask. Who's to blame? I'm writing a whole article about this, actually. Not about who's to blame, but just Bray Wyatt in general. That should be up tomorrow on Bleacher Report, but it has been a massive disappointment. He started out really, really hot. He was one of the best rehires, the best rehire for a few months there. The Pitch Black stuff kind of went nowhere. The follow-up sucked. The Bobby Lashley stuff was not going well before it was cut short. He got sick or hurt, whatever the fuck happened a couple months ago. We haven't seen him since. I don't think he's leaving. I don't think they would pay all that money to bring him back and then fire him. I would be very surprised, honestly. I don't think he's going anywhere. The thing with Bray Wyatt is this. I'm not going to put complete creative blame on WWE. I do put most of it. Bray Wyatt, it seems like whatever the fuck he was doing had his fingerprints all over it. I don't know if they messed up what he wanted to do, but it also feels like when you give Bray Wyatt too much creative freedom, then it's not good either. Because then it's just dragged out and dragged out and dragged out. And then it sucks. I saw a rumor today from Cultaholic. I don't know where it came from, but WWE wanted The Fiend back, apparently, and Bray didn't want that, and they weren't happy with the Pitch Black shit. First of all, the Pitch Black shit was their fucking idea, because they had a sponsorship to push. So if they didn't have to do that, who knows what we would have gotten instead. Probably just Wyatt and Knight straight up. I doubt it would have been much better, but the Lights Out shit was completely their fault, because that was their partnership. That's not Bray Wyatt's fault. Second of all, they had something with him when he first came back, being just himself. And then he went back to doing the spooky promos, the supernatural bullshit, the Firefly Funhouse crap. The Fiend stuff is dead. WWE, if they want The Fiend back and that's true, then I don't know what the fuck they're watching. I mean, they have a Peacock subscription. Go back and watch Hell in a Cell 2019. Go back and fire up Super Showdown, was it? In 2020. Go back and fire up WrestleMania 37. All instances where The Fiend was made to look like a total fucking joke. They killed The Fiend. I have no desire to see The Fiend back. If that's WWE's idea of bringing Bray back and using him, we can use The Fiend. No, The Fiend is dead. Move on. He was really popular when he first came back in October. He still gets great reactions. The last time I was there at a show, I mean, he was still getting pretty good reactions. So it's not like he's not over and people just completely don't care. You could have run with the Bray Wyatt is a normal person gimmick and gone from there. The problem is whether it was WWE fucking with it or Bray Wyatt just getting too much creative freedom. They didn't continue on with that. They went in a completely different direction with no fucking reveals at all. No development, no progression. Nothing with the Uncle Howdy crap was ever paid off. It was just a complete waste of time. I don't think this is it for Bray Wyatt, but when he comes back, he needs a hard reset going back to what he was doing when he first came back in October, or at least not the bullshit we were seeing before he left in March. The Muscle Man dance crap, keep that shit in 2018, 2019. I don't need to see that in 2023 personally. At E13A, that stuff ran its course years ago. His first question was, when you played the SmackDown vs. Raw games for GM mode, did you often do it against the CPU? I did. About half the time I would. I would either do it with friends, with my brother, or just myself. I would play Raw and SmackDown. But I would also do it against the CPU sometimes. And it wasn't that, I would have it on easy, but I have it on easy now in 2K23, and it's still very difficult. The rules are different now, and it would get to a point where I would win every single year against the CPU in SVR 07 and 08 and whatever, because I would build up all my talent over time because my booking was what it was and I knew how to do feuds and stuff. I like that booking of feuds better than what they have currently in the games, but that's just me. I built up all my talent to like level 100, so there was no way my show couldn't win because I was always getting 5 stars for my pay-per-views. So I'm doing against the CPU now for 2K23 just because I kind of have to. But at some point, maybe I'll control more than one show. That would take more time, so probably not. But yeah, I did often do it against the CPU in SVR 07 and 08 for GM mode. And I would typically win because I played it all the time. His next question, do you think Baron Corbin and Mustafa Ali being on NXT will rejuvenate them? I do. For how long, I don't know. I actually really like them both being in NXT. I said that when they became free agents last month or earlier this month or whatever, whenever the draft was. Corbin specifically, I wanted in NXT. Even before he became a free agent, I wanted him back in NXT because there was nothing more for him to do on Raw or SmackDown. Ali, when he became a free agent, I said to myself, him being in NXT would also be cool because he never really got a run on NXT. He's had matches on NXT. But he went from the Cruiserweight Classic right to 205 Live. And he did some stuff on NXT, but not a lot. So it would have been cool to see him in NXT, and it is now. Again, he's not really doing much in the main roster. He just faced Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship at Night of Champions, and failed, obviously, and had a good match. But what more can he do on the Raw roster? Or on SmackDown. He's only at a certain level. So facing Wesley at some point for the the Heritage, not the Heritage Cup, the North American title would be cool. So I like that a lot. The Baron Corbin one I love. And I'm not going to say, like you said, will it rejuvenate them? It will, but it's not like they'll go back to the main roster and be super over or be big stars. Like, it'll be fun for a while and eventually run its course, and then we're back to the same issue that they were in before, the same spot they were in previously. Look no further than Apollo Crews. But Baron Corbin being back in NXT, I think, is great. He had nothing more he could do on the main roster. He has been booked so fucking awfully, and the characters he's been doing have not been great. I don't really blame him per se. I think he's very good. But the characters weren't great. The Happy Corbin bullshit, the JBL stuff was completely a total failure. And he's been doing nothing for months. And he hasn't been in NXT in like 6 or 7 years. It's been a long time, close to a decade actually, which is wild. Hopefully he can go back to doing the Lone Wolf thing. I will watch NXT Live next week if he comes out to that song. Solely to find out if he comes out to that music or not. And he probably won't, but it would be cool if he went back to being that version of himself, or at least a different altered version of it. Because what he was doing before, the bum-ass Baron Corbin stuff can be entertaining, but it's been so long now, going back to his roots as the Lone Wolf, I feel like would be the best use of Baron Corbin, especially back in NXT, working with someone as talented as Carmelo Hayes. I feel like it's a perfect formula for, Hayes to benefit, the matches can be good, Corbin can benefit, being back in his old stomping grounds. I like it a lot. Last question from Emmanuel here. Push or repackage Karrion Kross? Probably push. I saw the videos of him and Scarlett in Saudi Arabia on the Night Walk, or whatever it was called, the City Walk, before Night of Champions over the weekend. I've talked to Karrion before, and I've met him and whatever. He's a really, really nice guy, and that's kind of how he comes across in those videos that we saw on the WWE YouTube channel and on social media over the weekend. It would be cool to see that version of Karrion on TV. I don't know how that would translate to a character. It would just be more so himself. But SmackDown already has a plethora of baby faces. They have Edge whenever he's around. They have Bobby Lashley, AJ Styles. So I don't really think they need to turn Karrion. They also have Rey Mysterio too. Turning Karrion wouldn't really be necessary. Just push the guy. Put him in a program with, a popular babyface on the show, a Bobby or an AJ or an Edge. We already saw Karrion and Rey Mysterio, but Any of the other 3 people I feel like he could really benefit from. As long as he goes over in the end is the issue. Because he always is used, he's been typically used so far in SmackDown as a stepping stone for Ray, for AJ, for Drew, for this guy, for that guy. They need to really focus on getting him over by putting him in programs with popular people and having him win some matches and doing more to get heat. Because he's not doing enough to get heat, therefore people don't care. I like the character a lot. I like this version of Karrion a lot that we currently have on the show. But he just has no direction. And he's not really working with people that'll get him over. And if he is, he's not winning. That's also part of the problem. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 496 of #AskGSM for May 31st, 2023. Hard to believe we're already coming up on June, the halfway mark of 2023, which is wild. I got a birthday coming up on Friday, so I'm looking forward to that. Seeing the Spider-Verse movie on that day as well with Alexis. So very excited for that. Hopefully a wrestling-free weekend. I know Noob mentioned earlier the Crockett Cup show from NWA. That's on Saturday and Sunday. I'll watch it when I watch it. Probably not when it airs because I have other stuff I got going on. But we got to relax coming up the wrestling busy-filled weekend from Memorial Day weekend. And we can just look forward to the future as we head into Money in the Bank. We head into All In, SummerSlam, and all the other exciting shows coming up in the coming months and weeks as we kick off the summer season. That also brings me to episode 500 of #AskGSM, which I am hoping to make a live show as we did for, I think, 200, 300, 400 as well. So I think we've done it for those 3 milestones. We will try it for 500 in a couple of weeks, which I think would be June 7th is 97. June 14th would be 98. June 21st would be 99. And then June 28th would be episode 500. Now, do we wait a week and do it on the anniversary of the show? Because we're also approaching the 10-year anniversary of the show. Probably not, because I was thinking about that, and then I'm thinking, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but it also falls on my anniversary with Alexis. Our anniversary is also the anniversary of #AskGSM, completely coincidental. So we'll be busy that day. I can't do a live show on that day. That would be on Friday, I think. So, is it Friday? I think it's Friday. So I can't do a live show that day anyway. It'll probably be on the actual week of episode 500 in 4 weeks. We'll figure it out as we go along, but I am hoping to do a live show that day. I feel like it'd be a lot of fun, as we always do. So make sure to earmark that date, June 28th, here on the channel. Very much hoping for that to be episode 500 live. 10-year anniversary of #AskGSM. Fucking crazy. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.